Hello and welcome to today's episode of SportsCasters Media. I am your host, Lyles Jr., and today we're going to be talking about the Lakers NBA title chances with Rondo potentially being out, best wide receivers in the NFL, and racism in the NFL. Enjoy.
Tell us why. Yeah, I am the king of the E. Hey, get it through like the DJ. Yeah, I am the
Hello and welcome to today's episode of Sportscasters Media. I have Matthew Anderson, Shontis, Stewart, and Hunter Stubbs. How you guys feeling today?
Doing great, man.
Good.
Feeling good, man. Feeling good. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Let's get right to it. So the first topic of today's episode is Lakers' chances of an NBA title with Rondo potentially being out with a right broken thumb injury. Hunter, give your take on that.
I don't think it really makes much of a difference whether he's out or not. I mean, yeah, he's the point guard, but if you look at their bench, they still have Caruso and Kuzma who can still control the ball. So I don't really think that really hurts them. And then not just that, you have the best player in the world on the team who can also bring the ball up the court and play all five positions. So if you ask me if Rondo's injury hurts or betters the team, I think his veteranness of having him out there on the court, a lot of people have said that Rondo would be a great coach one day because of his knowledge of basketball. But as for having him out on the floor, I don't see it really benefiting or hurting them other than in the assist totals at the end of the day.
So for me, yeah, it's gonna hurt some because that's a veteran guy on that team that's got plenty of playoff experience. Look at the bench for like we mentioned Caruso and Kuzma. Neither of those guys have won anything in this league. So you want to have as many guys on your roster will come playoff time that have championship pedigree and championship experience. But again, like Hunter said, you got the best player in the world. There's really no excuse for you not to be the favorite going into these playoffs and not to end up winning a championship when it's all said and done. So having Rondo be there or whether he's not, either way, you got enough talent on that roster to get the job done.
Yeah, I think one thing that's important to note is that he'll probably be out 6 to 8 weeks. And obviously Avery Bradley's son had the health complications with the respiratory problem, so he decided not to be in the bubble for obviously health reasons. But all that to say, he can probably still be back by around the time of the second round of the playoffs, or when it really matters, whenever they'll probably end up playing, in my opinion, the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals. So as long as he's back by then, they should be okay. I feel like Houston might give him some problems just because of from a matchup standpoint if Russ gets into the bubble, because I think he had the virus for a little while there. Well, he still has it, as a matter of fact. He's just hoping to get cleared here shortly. And, yeah, so I think Quinn Cook, Caruso, those other guys, it's time to show up and basically be a Band-Aid until Rondo gets back. And as long as the Lakers are rolling and as long as LeBron is doing what he does, as y'all keep mentioning, he plays every position. He's the best player in the world. As long as he can hold things down, he should be back when it matters the most.
And that's funny that you guys mentioned that.
Do you really want Rajon Rondo with the ball against Patrick Beverley and the Clippers?
I love Patrick Beverley. I love the defense of the Clippers. So I'm up for all the pressure they're going to bring with them.
I'm not going to lie. You do got to have a Rondo when you go up against a team like the Clippers. Like, you need a veteran-savvy guy against that team because if I leave Quinn Cook and Caruso and Kuzma against the Clippers,
they ain't getting the ball with Bron.
They are getting ate alive by the Clippers.
Exactly. That's why it was crazy when Hunter, when you were saying, not having Rondo on your squad, when you just brought up a good point. When it comes down, because let's be honest, in the Western Conference Finals, it's most likely going to be the Lakers and the Clippers, hands down. But if you put Quinn Cook or Alex Caruso or somebody like Pat Bev, help you, because that's not going to end well. You see what he does to elite point guards like Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook. You see what he does with those kind of caliber point guards. When you put somebody who's at best a B average level player against Pat Bev, good luck to you, brother. That's all I got to say.
But we're saying putting that, we're talking point guard versus point guard. You think they're going to – I mean, yeah, they got Kawhi and PG, but you're going to put Avery Bradley off of or take God, I forgot his name, Clippers. We were just –
Pat Bev.
Pat Bev. There you go. You're going to take Pat Bev off Bron, somebody who could pass them all game long. Yeah, Bron's got the size. but you can also pest him all game long and just make him mad. We see what that happened with Draymond when Draymond did that in the finals against him. He was on his side all night long, and he really made it harder on LeBron to play.
Do y'all think that'll be the matchup, Pat Bev versus LeBron for that series?
Oh, I think it's Pat Bev versus whoever he matches up on against the court. Just because of I think he's the best defender in the league. Just because he's like Draymond, he's that pest in somebody's side, and having a 7-game series, having to go against Pat Bev and Kawhi for 7 games, it's gonna be tough.
That's true, but like you were saying, yeah, he has the size. Size actually does play a bad in the NBA. No matter how, I don't care how big you are, but if I could just rise up and just dunk on you. So, like, let's say Pat Bev is on Anthony Davis for one play. Pat Bev can do as much as he wants. All Anthony Davis has to do is just rise up and just shoot over. That's it. So, I mean, at the end of the day, when you have players who are mentally sound, and I feel like, LeBron coming in and 17 going on 18, he has perfected the mental part of basketball. So, yeah, you had that little streak of, Draymond Green pestering him, this and that. But I don't think if, kind of veering off from topics a little bit, I don't think that's LeBron's worst matchup that he has yet to gone up against. I think his worst matchup is Kawhi because the dude says nothing and he still drops buckets on you. If that doesn't mess with your psyche as a player, yeah, that's just something that you have to understand. Like, Pat Bev can talk, trash talk, call you out your name, call your mama, whatever. But at the end of the day, if you still drop buckets on him, that doesn't really matter. So,
but there's something about Kawhi versus Pat Bev. LeBron's already played again 7 games, 2 7-game series against Kawhi, and he still never heard him say anything.
That's true.
When he was with the Spurs. So, I mean, he's already got that experience against him versus playing against Pat Bev for 7 games. I just think that's a hard matchup. Pat Bev wants to go against the best player in the world every single day.
But going back to your point, yes, he went up against him for 2 7 games, but he went up against a younger, not fundamentally sound Kawhi.
True.
Kawhi now is a dog. Like, he has epitomized his name as being the Claw now. Like, before, under Pop, some would think, oh, he's just under, greatest coach ever, whatever. This man has done it in Toronto, and he's about to do it in the Clippers. Now, I personally think the Lakers going to take it all. But this will probably be LeBron's, in my personal opinion, with the injury, players and the taking time off for COVID and all that stuff, this will probably be one of LeBron's toughest roads to get to a championship. Because
go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was about to say, I'm trying to see the Clippers win it, so I'm on the other side of LA.
Potato. We'll see come playoffs start. So with the NBA coming back and all that good stuff, and now, other leagues coming back, with the NFL, based off of what you have seen in the time that you have seen the NFL and when the players that you believe are considerably the best players in the league, best wide receivers in the NFL as of right now. Hunter, go ahead.
Best wide receivers or one in particular?
Just one in particular. We'll just do one.
D-Hop, no doubt. DeAndre Hopkins.
Why do you believe that?
I mean, the man's going to the Cardinals. So, I mean, he's got a young quarterback. He's going to have, a rough spell, I feel like, this year. But if you look what he did in Houston, every single year, 7 different quarterbacks, finally getting Deshaun, somebody who can sling the rock, and just wasn't respected. I feel like now, if he wasn't respected then, he's definitely about to be respected now.
Okay, so here's my thing. I have a little breakdown for this. So I think the top guys, you got Julio, Michael Thomas, Antonio Brown, OBJ, DeAndre Hopkins. Antonio is great, but the best ability is availability, and he's got to go see the commissioner. So he's out for now. For now, he's not even – I don't think he's even in the league right now. I don't know if he's been reinstated. OBJ, I like a lot. It's one of my favorite guys to watch. But towards the end of the year, he's usually not available. He's usually injured. And when he was available, we all know they took the boat trip to Miami, and He ended up dropping a couple catches in the playoff series. I think in the playoff game, I think that was against the Packers. So I'm gonna take him out. I like Michael Thomas a lot too. He's had 1,000-yard years all 4 of his years in the NFL, and I think he's coming. I think he has potential to be the best to ever do it. But I need him to – and then also I didn't realize this, but DeAndre and Julio Jones have both in their first 4 years, neither one of them were able to have all 1,000-yard years. So that's a lot of promise for Michael Thomas. But I need you to be in the league for 5 years just so I can see if you can rise to the challenge after maybe some adversity, some things might happen, which leads me to Julio versus DeAndre. I'm going with Julio Jones, the 6'3", 220-pound beast from Alabama. I like the fact that he's bigger than DeAndre. Quarterbacks love a bigger targets that can run like the small guys. DeAndre ran a 4.57 at the combine, and Julio clocked a 4.39. Now, don't get me wrong. I like DeAndre a lot. My whole life, I was a big Clemson fan. I remember when they used to call him Nuke, in Death Valley, Memorial Stadium, wherever you want to call him. But I did look up, and I saw that when you get down to the catch percentage, I was expecting DeAndre to have a higher catch percentage just because I like to think of him as the hands guy. But he actually has a 60.3% reception rate, I guess you could say. Meanwhile, Julio is at 63.7%. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with Julio Jones, the man from Alabama. That's my point.
Okay. All right, cool. When you bring up catch percentage, right? That's great. Now, when you bring that up, show me the list of Houston quarterbacks that he played with prior to Deshaun Watson. We got Brian Hoyer. We got T.J. Yates. We got Matt Schaub, all of which are guys that you would never put in any top quarterback discussion ever. These are all career backups.
Yeah.
Julio Jones has played with a better quarterback, an all-pro level quarterback, an MVP quarterback for the entirety of his career. Tell me why Julio Jones only leads DeAndre Hopkins by 3 touchdowns. Hopkins is at 54 in 2 less seasons and worst quarterback play. Julio Jones is at 57. Hey, look, I love Julio Jones because Julio Jones can get down the field. He can make a lot of deep ball catches. He has a lot of yards. But you know what? I feel the same way about him that I feel about Michael Thomas. There's a lot of empty calorie stats. I need touchdowns. How can you continuously be the best receiver? How can you be the best receiver in the game if you can't give me double-digit touchdowns? At least
what if he's open in the end zone and maybe they don't throw it to him? That's not his job as a receiver. All he can do is make the catch.
I'm saying you know what? You're right. But if I look at Matt Ryan's stat line, I look at how many touchdowns Matt Ryan's throwing per year. It's hard for me to justify why Julio Jones can't give me 10 touchdowns a year. At least 8. Give me 8 a year. But Julio's got years where he's giving me 5. But he's giving me 1,800 yards, but he's only giving me 5 touchdowns. But you know what? What stat I'd rather have more than the other? I'd rather get into the end zone. Julio Jones has all the physical attributes that you would want in a wide receiver, and that's great. But the greatest receiver of all time isn't the most athletic guy. Jerry Rice is the greatest receiver of all time, and he isn't on anybody's top 5 athletes to ever grace the field. He's a sub 4.6 guy, a good set of hands, but he's an elite route runner. I mean, Julio Jones has all the athletic ability in the world to be the best by far, but I don't think I wouldn't say underachieved, but I think I've seen other guys do more with less than Julio Jones has for an entirety of a career.
Well, I see that this won't go anywhere. You guys can go on and on and on. So Julio Jones, D-Hop, Michael Thomas, all great receivers in the league nonetheless.
Still going with Julio. But I get what you're saying, Shontis. You got a good point. I give it to you. You had a good point.
Look, folks, stay tuned for a part 2 to this debate. So kind of taking it down a notch a little bit and, understanding the social things that go on outside of sports. There's different parameters of what people go through and what people experience in anything that's just not just sport. So there has been a lot of scrutiny in society about, how people are treated, whether it's African Americans treated in a injustice way or if it's the Jewish community being said whatever about them. So as far as sports, and I'm gonna get you guys to be as open as possible. As far as the NFL is concerned, how do you feel about the racism level in the NFL, and how do you think we can come from it as far as change, or do you believe there's no racism in the NFL at all? Hunter, you can take your stance on it.
I think the big thing is the way they try to play the Rooney Rule this year about, being equality towards having while hiring head coaches and executives in the front office, taking away a 7th round draft pick. Do teams really need a 7th round draft pick? Sometimes there's hidden gems. Sometimes no, they're bust. So I don't really see that helping them. But in the NFL, I don't think there's equal opportunity to get to the top unless you're an athlete. And they don't take care of the athletes. A lot of players have said, it's like working in the field when you work in the NFL. It's really hard. They don't care about you and things like that. And I think that's the number one thing that the whole movement, the Black Lives Matters movement is all about, is equality. That's all they want. It's just equality all around, whether it's, a job at McDonald's or a job in the NFL. It's all about equality. So I think you have to start with getting rid of rules that shouldn't be in place, that should be there all the time anyway.
Okay, so I got a couple examples of the racism in the NFL. You have where black players get mad and they show emotion. They're said they're uncontrollable. Meanwhile, a lot of times you have white players do that and they're very passionate, which is, you see that with the whole Tom Brady versus Odell Beckham Jr. Situation. Then you have, did y'all hear about Dez Bryant whenever he was in the pre-draft meetings and one of the GMs asked him, is his mother a prostitute? It's like, that conversation doesn't come up, I would imagine, with most white players. I haven't heard any of them say anything like that. And then with the Cam Newton asking him, does he have any tattoos? Let's leave it like that. That generally isn't a conversation I'd imagine that would happen to any other player unless they're black. Also, my last one, whenever the white coaches get fired, usually they might get a head coaching job the next year. There's that one day, usually I think in January, whenever everybody's getting fired and they're getting hired. Meanwhile, black coaches, who's the guy from the Browns? What's his name?
Man,
bald-headed guy, Hugh Jackson.
Yeah.
You lose his coaching job, he climbed all the way back to the bottom. I don't even think – he's coming all the way back from the bottom. I don't even think he was an offensive coordinator or anything after he lost.
He was the assistant offensive coordinator.
What'd you say?
He was the assistant offensive coordinator.
Yeah. Now, granted, he was terrible with the Browns, but it's just that's one of the many examples. It's like he's going to have to climb all the way back to the top. And so we just need we're still waiting on to get our first black owner, because it was great for, obviously integration to be able to play in the NFL, things like that. You also see this in baseball league, like the Negro Baseball League. We moved over into being integrated into the Major League Baseball. But at some point, we got to get into some ownership, because we're not just always the talent. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah. And to piggyback off of what Matt just said, it's going to take having more black owners. You need more people that look like us, that understand the people that are applying for these jobs. There's no reason why the percentage of black head coaches it's like 5%.
Somewhere around that, yeah.
It's low. It's the fact that if you feel like these guys are good enough to be all pro players and Pro Bowl players, but all of a sudden their mind isn't smart enough to be a coach. The same type of intelligence it takes to play the game, it's the same type of intelligence it takes to coach the game. And there's plenty of black coaches like Eric Bieniemy, for example. There is no reason why Eric Bieniemy should not be a head coach in the league right now. I thought when Carolina fired Ron Rivera, I thought Eric Bieniemy was going to be up next, but he didn't. I'm not even sure if he got interviewed for most of these coaching jobs. But yeah, like Matt said, it's just going to take having more black ownership and having people that just, again, understand that there's just as many talented black coaches and black assistants as there are white assistants. So it's just going to take that in order for us to take that next step. But the NFL is kind of a tough place. I don't know if we'll ever see that in our lifetime.
And it's crazy that you guys have these different opinions, which are all correct. And you ask yourself, why can't the NFL emulate some of these other leagues? Well, main one, the NBA. The NBA leads any sports league in diversity, inclusion, and overall acceptance into the overall league of itself. And that's from player all the way to ownership. You have different women, different ethnicities, race that are in these higher up positions. So you have to ask yourself, why can't the NFL emulate and copy what they do? And it's just a matter of who you let in. So going back to the 5% of, owners being African-American or whatever the statistic that you just said, Tease, I'm sorry. And just making sure that we utilize what we have, because it's awesome to be an athlete, but for those of us who look like me, who are not athletes, and I look and I see nothing but head coaches and owners and general managers and VPs that are white. So it's a little deterring for someone who, goes to school and get these degrees in these sport type of majors, and we get into the real world and we see no one like us other than the ones that's on the field. So, just making sure that we educate and we utilize people to use their voice and to see the change in what is bigger than what they truly are. Because at the end of the day, everyone preaches diversity and inclusion, which is awesome. But if Matt and I sit in a boardroom and we're the only two black guys, but it's, some white people here, some Asian, some Indian, that's diversity. Inclusion is when we're included in the board meeting, which is fine. So this is the scapegoat part. The acceptance part is when everyone around the table said something but me and Matt. That's not accepting. You're including us in the boardroom, but you're not accepting us to say something in the boardroom. And that's what the NFL overall just has to get into. So that concludes today's podcast for SportsCasters Media. Thank you guys, Matthew Anderson, Shontis, Stewart, Hunter Stubbs. Thank you guys for coming on and, sharing some good knowledge on what you believe on these topics today and what you provided for the viewers, for everyone. This podcast is brought to you by Gym Dropper Sports. Mr. Shontis Stewart is the head of that. So you guys take a chance, check that out. He provides some great content, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Gym Dropper Sports, made by Shontis Stewart. Stay tuned next week for more great content on SportsCasters Media. Sports for everyone. See you soon.